Like ghosts. Let's just talk about ghosts.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah.
It. My favorite kind of conversation. Hey y'all, I'm Ellen. We've been super inspired by our journeys of self-healing and discovery.
And I'm Sam, and we want to share our experiences with you to help you get curious about yourself, reconnect, and get intentional about your life so you know what makes you happy.
Welcome to Woo New, the podcast. All right. Man, we're crazy excited to be talking today to Nellie Resnick, who is a psychic medium and a Reiki practitioner, who I had the honor of working with. Probably it was only just 3 weeks ago, so fairly recently, for the first time, and I had a really beautiful reading. My dad came through and delivered a lot of messages, most of which I was not expecting, but it was a really great look back into his life. And it was such a profound reading that immediately afterwards I was like, man, we have to talk to Nellie. We have to unpack all this and dig into her heart and her brain. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited.
Yeah. Oh my God. I remember Ellen telling me about that session and I was like, I've got to do this. It just sounded like so deep. And so, it's like Ellen and I talk about this a lot because I'm a Reiki practitioner as well. And how it's interesting how you'll come across some practitioners who they work within very specific parameters in any holistic practice. But it's really where we find it so fascinating to combine modalities or combine these sort of clear senses with our modalities to make them more powerful and to allow a deeper level of meaning and healing with them. So I'm really excited for today.
Me too.
You're actually our first, maybe our second medium. We never really talked about mediumship with, I think it was our very first interview ever with a hypnotherapist. Yeah. And she was also a medium and a psychic as well, but we really dug into hypnotherapy with her. So we're excited to really dig into mediumship with you. And maybe we can just start with how did you even come to find out that you have these abilities?
Yeah. I think so. I now looking back, I'm like, oh, I think I was always psychic. But when I was a kid, it kind of, or just growing up, I think I just experienced it as anxiety. And it was, so in 2015, someone close to me passed away. And it was really through the grief process and not understanding what was going on. I think sometimes in grief you get too tired to perform, You're just this is the human I've been and I am tired now and whatever needs to come through just will. And so I started having really intense dreams. I started things just started happening that I couldn't explain. And I was just I'm feeling things. I don't know what's happening, but something's happening. And then it was through that process that, I don't know, I somehow found a medium. It was all very, things just come in very divinely. At the time I used to tell this story because I used to think every single detail was so amazing, and I would just watch people's eyes glaze over of the story of how I found the medium in the first place.
That's my...
I found this podcast and I had a dream about a podcast, it was just but anyway, yeah, so I took, I found a class to take, and my intention with it really was I was okay, Spirit, I've heard enough readings now where I believe in it myself. If I'm meant to do this, will you just in my first reading just give me information to verify that what I'm getting is right and that I'm connecting? And if I'm not meant to do this, just don't show me anything and I'll know and I'll walk away and it's fine, everything's fine. And I saw this lady's whole house and all of this details that I was I don't know, it's just coming out of me,
Before the reading?
No, during the reading.
Oh, during
I was
the reading.
And you only have one vase in your house and it, it's an upside down triangle. And she was Yes. It was like, and the dog pees in your front flowers in the yard every day. And she was like just like these random details. I didn't know what was mediumship, what was psychic, what was coming through, and how. But yeah, it was like details that I was like, there's no way for me to know this. And then I would do other readings that were terrible because it's a skill that you have to learn. It was like anyway, yeah. So I just spent like the first year after that just doing as many readings as I could, like for free, and going to a mediumship circle and taking. I mean, I couldn't afford a lot of classes, but I was like, whatever I can do, I'll do it. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of how I discovered it. And I think I was in shock for a while and just going with it. And now now it's my job. So
That's so fascinating. Like, what were those workshops like?
so the first one I ever did was like this online class that was like 12 weeks or something. And it's funny. It's like not like there's so much I learned there that I don't stand by anymore, But it's like, because anyone can teach anything, um, and it's so individual too. So it's like someone might experience something one way, um, and someone else might experience it another way. And I think we have to make room for all of that. But I think what I really got out of that class was, first of all, it was like global. So I just got to meet other people going through the same thing and just do readings for people where you kind of don't harm people as much because they're also practicing. So if I say something real crazy, they get it. And then also it was like, it's funny what you remember because I haven't thought about this class in so long. But the teacher kind of encouraged us to stay off of like social media, not watch TV, like not look at screens, like all of that. So I cut everything out. And
during the training class or during the training portion of the class?
For like 12 weeks.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I was like, I'm just going to color. I was like, what is there to do? What do people do?
Oh my God, you know what I've been thinking about recently is finger painting. I'm like, God, I really want to finger paint for some reason right now. I'm like, I don't know why.
But it's like, because we have to distract our left brains, I think like so much of mediumship and psychic ability is like just believing you can do it. And it sounds so corny. Like, it's like, that can't be all there is to it. And that's not all there is to it. But it's like, I mean, like you can shuffle a deck of cards, you can finger paint, you can knit, you can like do your nails during a reading, and it actually really helps because it distracts the part of your brain that's like, this is crap. This is, you can't do
I
this.
totally get that. Like when I'm channeling, like my hands are constantly moving because it's like I need that, like otherwise the energy is not like flowing through properly.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. What you just said actually made something click for me because I was working with a quantum healer for a while and she was teaching me how to connect to my star family. And she told me you need to do automatic writing, but do it with your non-dominant hand. And so I was writing, I mean, gibberish. It was like circles or something with my left hand and it was coming through. But that's why. It's because you're basically doing something and tapping into your right side. But oh wow, that's cool.
I mean, I used to draw, and a teacher of mine had us like draw with our non-dominant hand because it just helps the connection somehow. I don't know.
Oh my God, I'm totally gonna try this.
And it's like,
like what's gonna happen?
but it's like funny how connected these things are, like the things that just kind of get sort of tossed aside in society and deemed as not important. Like psychic ability and art. And they are very connected, It's like basically anything that's deemed feminine.
Yeah. I've been doing this mystery mentorship program with a woman named Mimi Young, and literally just a few weeks ago we did what she calls shamanic art therapy. And so one of the exercises we did was she picked a tarot card, had it face down. None of us saw it. She didn't even see it. And we connected in, like, this whole module is about connecting in with the water energy. And so we connected in with water, and we just allowed whatever to come through to come through. And I just found myself drawing a lot of squiggly lines, almost like water lines, you know, like water waves or something. And I just kept on drawing that. And I was almost getting frustrated with myself because I'm like, nothing else is coming through. I'm just like drawing waves. And then I started drawing circles around the waves. And then when she turned over the card, it was, I think it was the Eight of Cups. It was basically an octopus with wavy arms holding baubles, like all these little circles of things. And I was like,
Wow.
what the fuck? I was just like, it floored me so much. And yeah. And then truthfully, I got a little bit almost ashamed of myself for being so floored. Do you know what I mean? Like, for not just trusting, yes, trusting and expecting that I have that ability.
I love everything you just said, because it's like, that's like going back to the training question. It's funny because you need the training, right? But then it's like, then that puts you in this box where you're like, I'm supposed to get how the spirit died. And if I don't, then I'm a failure. And I'm supposed to get exactly what they looked like and when they dyed their hair and when they didn't, you know? And it's like, instead of just letting the information flow through, where you don't know what you're getting, and like, but it just ends up making sense, or it's what the spirit wants to talk about, or what your soul wants to give me about yourself, or whatever. And then, but I mean, of course you were ashamed. I mean, it's like, that's part of it too. We're human. I mean, you know, we get obsessed with like having to get what we think is important, and like not realizing that we're not really in a position to know what is and isn't good evidence, or isn't important, you know, and like what wants to come through us. And at the same time, we have to kind of like be present and like understand what's happening. So it's like a really, it's not an easy balance to strike, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've definitely had a couple moments like that recently too, because I do oracle readings for my clients after the sessions, and like I've had a couple sessions where I pulled the cards like 3 or 4 times because I was like, I don't know, this seems so out of left field. And then but then when I was talking to them and I was like, oh, hey, okay, I'm going to ask you a question that I know you haven't brought anything up like this. So just like, tell me if this resonates or not. And then they're like, oh my God, how did you know? And I was like, okay, thank God, you know, because I had this moment of like relief that I'm not like going crazy, because I was like, how can all these cards be telling the same story with different, you know, like, and it's like, it was so not about what she was seeking Reiki for. So it was really interesting.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, because like on one hand, you do have to trust people and the client or ourselves about what's going on in our lives, and at the same time, none of us really know. I mean, people tend to not be so self-aware about the present moment, like myself included, and you think you have one problem, but it's really this whole other thing. And I think like often looking back, we can be like, oh, that's what that was. You know, I thought I really wanted a relationship, but actually, you know, I spent 10 hours at Sephora every day or whatever, you know, and I needed to look at that. Or, you know, like whatever's going on. But in the present, I think it's harder. But I think that is like a really big part of our jobs as psychics and as mediums, is to go like, okay, what's really going on here, in a respectful way. But and then it's kind of, I think it does surprise people sometimes what comes up. And then I think part of being a medium or training yourself or learning to trust is just being like, okay, I know this is what's coming through, and for some reason I have to talk about it.
Wow.
Yeah, and finding a way to do that in a way that it can be received.
Yeah, not pushing either.
Yeah.
How
and
do you...
go ahead,
Sam. No, go ahead, Sam.
Oh, I was just going to say, I jumped ahead because I got so excited about what you were talking about. But I think it would be really helpful for our listeners who don't know what the difference between being a psychic and being a medium is, if you could help explain that.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good question because they do think the two terms get intermingled a lot.
Yeah.
And I find that even within the two terms, there's even more things to
Nuance.
unpack. But basically, a psychic connection is if I'm connecting to the person in front of me or something kind of like, it's like a front to front connection, where you pick up on details about the person's life, past, present, future, their energy. It's a soul to soul connection, but it's with a living person. And mediumship is connecting with souls that have passed or have crossed over. And I use it specifically for, like, a friend of mine calls it ex-humans. But like,
I kind of love that.
so I know some people, I think, use the term with, like, angels or other beings or whatever. I think it's a little different. But yeah, I think like both of those connections are really specific and different from each other. And a lot of people who are psychic can build up to also being mediums. But all mediums are able to have a psychic connection.
Yes.
Gotcha.
So you,
Okay.
yeah, okay. I think we talked about that like years ago, Al, when we first met Kat, because I was like, wait, I'm so confused. But
Yeah.
okay. So do you ever connect with souls that maybe weren't ex-humans, but are technically like spirit guides or star beings or anything, something like that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. For me, actually, and that's easier to connect to. I think there's also this thing in mediumship that I find that people are like, I don't want to talk to Aunt Sally. I, only want to talk to like the higher spirits. And I'm like, all right, let's break that down. First of all, who are you? Are you better than Aunt Sally? You're going to be an ex-human one day too. But also, yeah, star beings, guides, they're kind of easier to connect with for me because they are on that level where their job is to like help guide, or if they're coming in, it is to help guide, and they have kind of, they're just easier to communicate with because they know how.
Interesting.
And because they know what's going on in the person's life, and they're like they know what's up, basically. Someone who's passed, I think sometimes people have this misconception that like, oh, my grandma died, I didn't even get along with her in life, and she was just some lady to me, but now she's supposed to know everything about my life and give me guidance and be extremely wise. And it's like, she's still your grandma that you didn't like. Sorry.
Yeah.
Or maybe you did like her and she was really good at, like, she had to be really good with money, and maybe she can give you really good advice about money. First of all, maybe that's not the advice you need. But also maybe she's trying to give you dating advice. And if you didn't take it in life, why would you start to take it just because she passed 2 years ago?
That is so. I never thought about it that way because I totally am. They know everything now. You know what I mean? It's like I have this perception that like they have the full scope of your life. So
Yeah, it's interesting because I think there are different things that kind of come up with people and in readings where I'm like, we have to kind of, let's unpack this and why you think this. I mean, sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes people are like, oh, I don't want to hear from this person, which I totally get. But sometimes it's this other thing where it's like, I think what we need to move away from in psychic readings and mediumship readings is like outsourcing our power and our responsibility onto other, like, all the star beings, they know what I'm supposed to be doing, or like my grandma knows, and it's like they're people, and they have their own things to do. And I think it's very individual. Like, it does happen sometimes where spirit will come in and kind of like help me lead the whole session for someone I'm reading for when it has to do with their life. But other times it's like, they're just coming in and they're like, I don't like the car that you bought. You should have gotten the other one, like, and it's not my job to like change the information, you know? It's funny, I did a reading recently that I'm remembering right now where it's like, she wanted help with a health issue, but she really wanted to hear from her friend in spirit about it because he used to give her good advice about it. And so I'm connecting with him. He's giving me, she doesn't tell me at first that it's a health thing. So he's talking about the relationship. He's talking about like things he wants to talk about, which why would you think he wants to talk about what you want to talk about? When is that ever the case with even like the living?
Right.
And then when she says it's a health issue, I'm like, oh, okay. So I tune in with her because that's the authority on what's going on. It's yourself usually, and then I'm getting everything. I'm like, oh yeah, it's like I'm being vague on purpose, but it's like going on with this part of your body. And she was like, yes. And then she's like, what does he have to say about it? And I'm like, do you want me to talk to him? Or do you want me to help you with your health issue? Because it's like, you got to be open to how the information comes through. And like, that's why one connection isn't better than the other. It's just understanding where to go when. And also understanding that like the answers aren't always outside of ourselves. It's a soul to soul connection.
Yeah.
So most of the best, like in terms of advice or things about the person's life, actually does come from the psychic connection.
The higher self.
The higher self, but also the person's energy field.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
We tend to think of it as like lower, like, oh, it's ego or whatever. And it's like, who are we to say like what's important or what's, I don't know.
Yeah. When you're talking to, because you were saying that talking to some of these spirit guides, like the angels or the star families and stuff, is a bit easier for you because they have the language or they know how to communicate a little bit. Probably they've had practice, in a sense. But what is the difference in the communication between a transition loved one versus
great question.
a guide?
Yeah, so for me, and I think for a lot of people, with a guide, it's kind of like, usually I do this visually. I talk with my hands anyway, but with a guide, it's usually it comes a little bit like from above. That's the feeling, and I'm doing a thing with my hands, but it's sort of like like a triangular motion from like the ears up. Is that what I'm doing? I don't know. It's something like that. But it kind of comes from above a little bit, or you'll feel it above your head. A transitioned loved one, it'll tend to come from behind a little bit, or to the left, to the right. And it's different for everyone. But part of it, too, is like if somebody's wanting to connect, this is a good place to start, because it's not just that they're talking to you, you're also talking to them. So you can ask them to do it this way so that you know the difference. So they'll usually come left or right, and it tends to be more of a shoulder-to-shoulder connection. So they vibrate a little bit slower than, let's say, an angel or a spirit guide. You hear people say, like, high vibration, low vibration, and I think that language tends to get really, I don't know, hierarchical and manipulated easily. But what it really is they're vibrating faster because they're made of less matter or something, or they're more energy than matter. I mean, spirit isn't matter, but it's, I mean, I'm misusing science so badly. There's someone listening right now being so mad at me, but like,
no, what you're saying
it's
makes
making
sense.
Yeah.
I mean, it's abstract anyway, and I'm like, how do I describe it? But it's so it's and mediumship is on a faster vibration than psychic, which is why people like to work as a medium. You have to kind of build up to that vibration, or getting used to that vibration. And every medium is a psychic or can work as a psychic, but not every psychic can work as a medium. That's why.
Is it because you're working in different dimensions? Is that why it's a different vibration?
I don't know if it's dimensions really, because I feel like they're all kind of in the, or I feel them in the same plane. I don't know that they are in the same plane, but it feels that way. But it's more like they just on a faster frequency, and so you have to like it's a soul
You
to
have
soul
to like
connection. So you have to learn to raise your own frequency or make your own frequency go faster in order to connect with spirit mediumistically and to sustain that connection for an hour or whatever. So building up your power. I think anyone can do it, but you just have to kind of learn how and build up that energy to do it.
yeah. It's like they're up here and you're here, and then you have to like sort of meet in the middle. So you have to learn how to like increase your frequency and then hold it there.
Yeah. And I think they kind of lower their frequency.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When you say they, you're talking specifically about the like spirit guides, or you're talking about
All of
transition
them.
loved ones?
I was talking about transitioned loved ones, but I think it's really all of them. But I think you know I don't know if this is actually true, but I do kind of feel like for a lot of people it is still easier though to connect with those like higher beings or faster beings, whatever you want to call it. Again, because they kind of know what's up, so they can help you. Um, but spirits, I mean, they should be easier to connect with because they're a little bit closer to who we are, or closer to the ground. But
Gotcha.
at the same time, they're people, and even like the living are also difficult, you know. So
Yeah.
then it's the same, but they just don't have a body, so it's people are just difficult, you know. So
Yeah,
those
yeah.
same difficulties show up. Um, but yeah, does that make sense?
Yeah.
And it's
yeah.
you know it's not one size fits all either.
Do you typically hear in language, or do you hear in images?
That's a good question. So I think for me it's kind of I don't even call it hearing really. So I think really what happens is I'm going to answer the question a little bit differently because I feel like it's like there's like a bigger thing there about how you even receive the information. I feel like what happens is, or in order to kind of develop being able to connect, you've got to kind of learn how to connect with your own energy field and your own soul and yeah, you just your own energetic system because what happens is that you receive the communication or whatever through vibration, and then your own energy field translates it in a way that you'll be able to understand. And so sometimes I'll hear something, but often the first thing that comes in is just a feeling. I find that that's true for myself, but I also have come to understand, at least right now, I change my mind every 6 months about how everything works. But well, as we learn more things, you know, and stay curious. But that really, it's if you want to be a medium, I think the feeling part of it or the clairsentience is probably the most important thing because that'll let you know who and where the information is coming from, whether it's psychic or whether it's mediumistic. Because it's sort of like feeling, you know, when like a living person kind of comes into a room and you're like, oh, I know who this is. And you don't have to like look at them or hear them. So that's kind of how it comes in first. And then it's a mixture of hearing, feeling, seeing, and knowing. And I talk about it kind of like, I think it's very similar to just how we experience just day-to-day reality too, where it's like, it's not that, and obviously not everyone has all access to all of their senses equally, but like, let's say you're hearing something and you're seeing the person and you're feeling something and you're knowing why you're there, like all at the same time. So I think it's about kind of engaging all of your senses and kind of allowing that to kind of come through. Does that make sense? It was like a long answer, but
Yeah.
I'm actually really glad that you explained it that way, because it brings up another question, which I feel like has come up a lot recently, for me in particular, around like, okay, how do you know specifically who you're connecting to, and how do you know that they're not like an imposter? Because there's lots of things flying around just trying to like play tricks on us.
I think, well, first of all, this is just me and my personality, but I tell people when they're worried about imposters that nobody's that interested in you. Just want, I think we do have to kind of examine where these beliefs come from.
Yeah.
These like fear-based, someone's out to get you or whatever. I think often, and we do kind of, by the way, with that, like we experience what we receive through our own belief system and our own, like what we're expecting to receive. So if you think someone's playing tricks on you, or you think, I mean, there's a little bit of that, but I think not as much as people talk about at all. Then, maybe you're receiving something and a part of you is scared. If you're scared of love and a loving being comes in, you're going to like experience that as scary. But knowing who and what is coming through, I think it takes a little bit of experience, and I think there's no way of getting around that. But I feel like really it's, I don't know. I think if you're first trying to connect, what I kind of tell people is just pick one person. Like maybe it's a loved one in spirit, like a grandmother or something. And just ask her to work with you, because you already know what her vibration feels like and it'll be familiar to you. And if you just work with her in the same way every day for like 2 weeks, you'll start to get used to just discerning vibration, and it doesn't have to be scary or complicated. And also, it gets less exciting the more you do it. And I think it's through that repetition that you're just like, this becomes like an everyday kind of occurrence, and it becomes less special, which I think is kind of a good thing, and so that's one way. But I think but then you kind of can move on to what you, like if you're doing readings for other people, you sort of connect, or you give information about what you're getting. So, things like gender or passing, or what mediums call evidence, which is a funny thing because I kind of want to move away from that terminal. I don't know. I have a lot to say on it, which good because this is like a talking podcast. But like this is the place, but there is a place for evidence. I think it can get a little ego based. I have a lot to say on it, but
yeah, please. That's actually one of our questions. So yeah, like, because I remember when I first met with you, you're like, I take an evidence approach to it, which I was like, oh, what does that mean? But I feel like, and I really want to hear your perspective, especially having done this for a while. Like, to some degree, I feel like everybody comes in with varying degrees of skepticism.
Yeah.
And so to alleviate the skepticism, or at least get them to listen, like really truly open up and listen, you have to kind of present a little bit of evidence to, for lack of a better word, hook them in, right? But yeah, I'm curious because I could totally see the ego piece coming into that as well. But
and it can be a bit outdated too. So I'll explain that. I think like a lot of the way, and I'm not the only person talking about this, I think, but it's been coming up a lot, where I think a lot of the ways that mediumship has been done or is still being done is a bit outdated. So a lot of what you see on TV, like having the person only say yes and no, when we're living also in an increasingly like complicated world, or maybe where we're just understanding those complications more, and there's more, you might not have all the context for the person's life, and so what you're receiving might not be a yes or no response, because you can only receive what's within your own frame of reference too, or where I think, and I took a class recently where I was like, the teacher was like the first person talking about this, and I was like, why aren't more people talking about this? I was like, this is amazing. A couple things. One is what he was calling psychometrizing the spirit, meaning, let's say your father comes through, and instead of me really blending energy with him, and bringing through information that he's specifically wanting to talk about, I can go, I have a man with me in the spirit world. I'm basically just reading him psychically, right? And I'm like, he died this way. He looked like this. And maybe what he wants to talk about is like something completely different. And it's through what he wants to talk about that the essence of who he is will come through and will be evidence. But the way that it's been done is like names, addresses, what the person looked like. I could Google that. And like, and also who wants to be talked about that way? You know, I mean, they're people. And I feel like to really honor spirits, I don't know. I just think about what it must be like to be on the other side and be like, I'm so excited. I get to talk to like, you know, my mom or my daughter or my friend. And then this medium is just like, okay, so I have a man with me in the spirit world, and, you know, he died of a heart attack. And then, and he's like,
it's so reductive.
Yeah, so reductive. And he's like, well, you know, if you just let me tell you about how, like, I drink a martini every single day at 5:33 p.m., she'd know it was me, you know? So, you know, so there's that part of it. And we do live in an increasingly Googleable world. So the things that used to count as evidence, I think, either don't anymore and won't. Will increasingly not. And then the other thing about it, the other thing is and another thing, I'm very that about this, but like, I think it sets up an oppositional relationship between the medium and the sitter, where the medium has all the power and knows all the things. On one hand, you know, it's like you can't, as a sitter, feel whether or not this is, you know, my loved one. I have to tell you. And then at the same time, we give the sitter too much power, where they get to tell you whether or not you're having a correct experience of what you're experiencing as the medium. And it's like you're in a position where you have to prove to them. And so much of this comes from the needs of basically white people upstate in like 1856. You know, which is honestly kind of like how modern day spiritualism sort of started. I don't know about the 1856 part, but don't quote me, but that was just the number. But really kind of around that time. And it's like, you know, and it also came from, I think, like mediums being terrified of being thrown in jail for being frauds. So much of that is not necessary anymore. You can take a mediumship class. You know, I think we have to sort of be leaders in shifting the dynamic and shifting the purpose of mediumship, you know, because the other part of it is like we get stuck on the evidence. We get stuck on like, you know, and he wore this kind of shoe, and, you know, like all of this, like, and, you know, he drove this kind of car, and he's saying you got a new car, and what, I don't know why I'm talking about cars so much, but yeah, but I've done readings too. Like I'm not calling anybody out because I've been this person where I'm like, oh my God, like I knew this and I knew this and I knew this. And then the person's sitting there just like, I just want to know if we'll ever have sex again, you know? And like, we're not addressing that. And that may be what's important. You know, I mean, I did a reading, so I'm calling myself out here, but I did a reading once where I got like all this information about this person's grandmother, like really specific things. Not even knowing or even thinking to pick up on whether or not they had a good relationship, because they didn't really. And the grandma was telling this person that like she loved her boyfriend, and you know that like they were gonna do all that she was gonna meet. She was excited for him to meet her family, and all this stuff was gonna happen, right? And then I found out like a week later that they like just like they did the reading, and then he broke up with her like a week later.
Oh man.
But she wasn't mad. It was a free reading too. It was like for a thing, but that was like a really important lesson for me, where it's like, what is this in service to?
Yeah.
Like, you know, yeah, I saw that, and she was like, I wasn't ready for that. I mean, she wasn't mad or anything, I don't think, but she was like, yeah, wow, I didn't expect you to say like, you know, because I think I said something like exactly what she wore to bed, including like the colors and what like something very specific that I couldn't have known, but also who cares, you know? It's like the person isn't always ready for that. It isn't always necessary. And then it doesn't really get to the need of the recipient. Life is really hard, you know? And I
Yeah.
think like if someone needs to hear from someone in spirit that they've really lost, and need to hear from and need a little bit of like proof that it's really them, and to really hear to like reconciliation and messages, then that's really important, and we have to do that. But so many people do not benefit from just hearing hard evidence for like a full half hour or hour or whatever.
Yeah, I totally could see that. I have so many questions. One is like, so just going back to that like quick example that you threw out, like, I just want to know if I'm ever going to have sex again. Like, how often do you get people who come in who ask like very specific questions about their futures, and how do you balance that with the fact that like, okay, yeah, you're on this timeline now, but there is free will and there are a lot of things that could change what is happening here. And also, if you are connecting to someone who's like, well, she should be wearing a chastity belt. What are you talking about, sex? You know?
That's a great question.
Yeah, that is a good question. I think, yeah, so first of all, at the start of every reading, I just explain how I work. And I do say we have free will. But also, at the beginning of every reading, I basically connect with the person's higher self and with my guide and just go, what does this person need? And I don't always get it right away. Like sometimes, and I think the other thing I've been kind of coming to and having to realize is that like I, as the medium, will also only get what I'm ready to get. So if there's something really traumatic that this person needs to hear about, we might need to ease into it. It might not be the first thing that comes up. But at the same time, trusting the initial things that come up. So I don't start with having the person ask me questions. Like I wait till the end for that. And so they might really want to hear about, for example, like, you know, when will I get married or whatever. But I might not know that that's what they're there for. And the first thing that might come up is just like, oh, you've had these kinds of relationships before and you've been like really chasing them and not going anywhere. Does that make sense to you? You know, and they might go, yeah. And just kind of unpacking the past and where they are and what's really going on. I actually find that most people are open to it. Not everybody is, but I think also, I mean, I actually remember there was one time over this last year, where at some point in the middle of the reading, I just said to the person, I was like, you want me to tell you your whole future? She was like, yeah. And I was like, I'm not going to do that. It's like, you keep like, I mean, I told her what her patterns were and like what, and she couldn't argue with me. And I mean, I do think that's the other part of it, right? Is just like, I don't love the word empowerment because again, it kind of implies that like I have the power and I'm giving it to you or something. But yeah, just kind of like for people not to shirk responsibility for their own lives and not like some people do want to give their power to me and I just don't take it. And I think part of that is letting go of like people pleasing or wanting the person to like me or like what I'm saying. I mean, you have to be respectful, of course. And also like if things come up for the future, I will say it. But yeah, just making it clear to the person how life works. I think a lot of people also assume that if psychic ability is real, then the future always being like absolutely being a certain way is real too, that the two are hand in hand. And I think getting people to see, at least from my experience, that that's not true. It's like two different things. I think is part of it.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Because I remember like probably 10 years ago, like way before we were ever in this sphere. I we worked in marketing, and I had this client who was telling me about a friend of hers who had gone to see a psychic, and the psychic had like given her all of this like horrible information, like her life was going really well, and the psychic was like, she was about to get married or just gotten married, and she's like, you're gonna get divorced, you're gonna lose all your money, you're gonna end up like blah blah blah. And then she said she ran into her friend like 10 years later, and everything that her friend had told her that psychic said had happened. And I was like, well, how much of that was manifest destiny? Like how much of that did she make happen because this woman told her it was going to happen, because then she believed it.
And also, like, how is that going to help her in the moment?
Right. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah. Made me really scared of psychics, though. I was like, never going to see a tarot reader. I'm never going to see a psychic. Like, don't tell me anything. But now I have a much clearer understanding of like how free will works, and like that there are multiple timelines and you can shift them. And
yeah.
But you bring up a good point in that, like, I think prior to this conversation, my perspective on mediumship was a medium just is like a translator or a channeler. Like, you just say everything that's coming through, and almost like unfiltered in a sense, but like you're basically like passing the information along. Whereas what you're getting me to better understand is, I mean, there's an art to this, and there's also like what actually makes an effective and a good medium, like a compassionate medium, is somebody who can take the information, know how to deliver it in a particular way, but also know how to pick through what's important and what's not, through the lens of how does this actually enhance this person's life? How does it actually help them get through, and it's not just an information transfer. Like, you're not just like a voice piece,
Right. I mean, to your point, Sam, from earlier, it's like there is a lot of crap out there in the sphere. It's not necessarily like trickster spirits. It's just that, like, I mean, if I talk about it this way too, where it's like, if you just think about even just physically, like there's so much information visually in front of you right now, so anything you can feel, noises, and our brains know what's important in the moment and only picks up on like a very small percentage of what's actually going on. And I think to be an effective medium, I think there's a lot of things that go into it. But yes, I do think it's an art. It's not a science. It's an art. And it's, you have to just kind of teach yourself how to like tune into what is important and work with your guides and with spirit to be like, and you need to give things to me in this way, like, but not overdoing that either, and letting them kind of take over where they need to. But I think it's always kind of a balancing act, and I'm always fine tuning. But I think that's a big part of it. And I like the way you put that.
Yeah, it seems like, I mean, it's like very much you're having to use your own intuition about what is beneficial and what's not. And like to Sam's point earlier, I mean, I think it's really scary, especially if you're somebody who hasn't necessarily been on like a spiritual or healing journey, and you're so desperate for answers, and you come to somebody who's just spewing all this stuff that could be perceived as detrimental or negative. I don't really necessarily believe in like like even the bad experiences are things that you're learning from. But if you're not prepared to receive that, and you're in this space, and you are putting your power in this other person to sort of dictate what your life is going to be, essentially, because you don't necessarily have the strength or the understanding yet, or the groundedness yet.
Yeah, there's no discernment.
Right, there's no discernment, exactly. What do you think is the most important thing for people to know before they seek out a medium? Or, like, how should they prepare themselves? What should they kind of go into? Like, what mindset should they kind of enter into this with?
That's a really good question. I think there's a few things that come up for me. I feel like one is just be prepared for anything to kind of happen. I feel like we're very used to, and it's not just with mediums and psychics. It's also like when we go to the doctor, when we go to anyone, we're like, just tell me what's wrong with me, or like tell me what to do. And I feel like we need to kind of, I mean, a part of why psychics like that exist, like the ones who are like told your friend all this stuff, um, is because like I think, I just think about like where are we in society that can flourish, and it's like because people aren't in their power or aren't used to listening to their intuition, and are taught that like some people are, like a few special people are psychic and the rest of us are not, and so when you go into a psychic reading, I think just like keeping that in mind, that you're in your power always, and that you're allowed to not connect with something that the psychic is saying and say that. Also be prepared to not hear exactly what you want to hear. Like that's part of it. And it may be that, the psychic is picking up on something that you need to hear that you're not aware of. But also, I think a lot of good psychics will say, I don't know sometimes, or I'm not getting that, or will kind of correct themselves. So you'll see it like they're having, I think the best readings I've gotten or have seen, it's like where you really see the psychic or the medium kind of grappling with or contending with or having almost like a conversation with what they're getting. So I think that's one thing, but yeah, I don't know. I think the most important thing is to just like not give your power away in a session. Yeah, and be open too, because I also think like psychic and mediums all work differently, and have different opinions on things, and that's, I think, really cool. And I think the flip side to what I'm saying too is I think a lot of just the culture of psychics and mediums, it can be very like, I just think there's a lot of fear about really being ourselves, and it can be very competitive. And the world is changing, and there's more psychics and mediums out there, and I don't think that's a bad thing, actually. Because I don't know, I just think it gives more of an opportunity for discernment and more of an opportunity for like us all to kind of get more on the same level in a way. So, again, a long answer to your question, but I don't know. I feel like it encompasses all of that.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad that you brought that up, actually, because Ellen and I, especially when we started on this, were really surprised to learn that like anyone could develop the skills to be able to, in essence, like hone in on their clear gifts and, tap into some sort of psychic ability. And then if you wanted to do the work, even mediumship, if it didn't come naturally, or it didn't come, not naturally, because it is natural, but if it wasn't like something that just like happened to you as a child or something, so I'd love to hear more about like your thoughts on that, and sort of how you approach that conversation with people who ask you about like where could they start.
Oh yeah, so I do agree that everyone can develop their psychic ability, and I think so much of it too is just unlearning and undoing like the conditioning that we get, that like we can't do this, even more than learning how to actually tap in. But I talk about it a little bit too as like, in terms of working as this, it's like anyone can learn how to play football. Not everyone can play for the NFL. It's like such a specific thing, and such a like, there's like a lot of things that need to happen in order for you to be able to do that. But anyone can learn just the basics, And so where to start? I would say, it's probably annoying to hear meditate, but meditate. Even if it's just 5 minutes a day. And I think what trips people up with that and with learning psychic ability is their expectation of the experience versus what the actual experience is like. I think it's a lot more subtle than people expect it to be. And I think part of what trips people up is they're expecting to feel something new or experience something new, and they might, but it also might be like, oh, I actually experience this all the time and I dismiss it, So meditation, learning how to just notice your thoughts, even, or slow down your thoughts, or make space for information to come in. And then if you even Google sitting in the power, it's a type of meditation that's active and where you kind of get in touch with your own power and your own soul, like learn to sit with your higher self and your soul, and your solar plexus really is I think where a lot of psychic ability comes from. But other ways is what I tell people is to like play psychic games. So daily, like if you're waiting for the train, just go like, when is the next train gonna come? Or which one is it gonna be? Which elevator is gonna come next? Things that you don't have emotional attachment to. I wouldn't start with, should I have a baby or should I go to grad school? I think a lot of people want to start there. And it's like, don't do that. Like you're gonna drive yourself crazy, You're not gonna know in the beginning what's just your conscious thoughts and what's your intuition. And the more you kind of practice, or the more, even just things like if you're reading a menu at a restaurant or something, just focus on one thing and go, what does this taste like? Like I've eaten this meal, what does it feel like in my body? Just things like that, that's what kind of, and then you get to test these pieces of intuition or psychic hits or whatever right away. Because if the train that you thought was coming doesn't come, it's a different train, you go, oh, how did I get that? Versus when it does come, and you go, oh, how did I get that? And how is that different than when I was wrong? And that's how you build up your psychic dictionary.
Oh, that's very cool. I'm definitely going to try that too.
Yeah.
And having fun with it. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Having fun with it.
I think one of the things that struck me about the reading I did with you is, you just have such a great sense of humor, and it came through the reading. So. And I felt my dad's sense of humor come through. And, it was like, I would never describe a reading necessarily as fun, but a reading with you was really fun.
Thank you.
It was just like, the hour passed by so fast, and like I wanted to hang out more, because it was just, I don't know, there's something to the levity of it and the fun of it that also I feel like it helps the messages cement or integrate into your system a little bit more. And also, even if it was, I was crying in the reading as well, but it was just this whole myriad of emotions that I felt was like, I don't think I've ever really received a reading like that, any kind of reading that was like that, where it felt like the full spectrum, mm-hmm. just kind of reflective of life, and it wasn't just so dark or so serious, but it was also like, I don't know, it made a huge impression on me, so I'm really glad that you said like have fun with it, because I think so often when we're studying something, we get really like serious about it and like we forget this is actually supposed to be super fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for that reflection. That's so nice, because I think like one thing that I don't know, even through the mediumship training that I've received, it's like, do this, don't do that, and then you do it that way, and then you just like, everyone's set, like the spirit is just like, why can't I make a joke, and then like and I think, it's interesting actually, because you're saying that it helped you integrate the information, but I feel like just being myself helps me get the information and helps the flow, because it is a conversation. And I think part of it too is just like, who am I to not enjoy talking to your loved ones in spirit? It's like, who do I think I am to like cherry pick the information, or to like cherry pick who I'm going to talk? Well, you kind of do pick who you're going to talk to in a way. It's like, all right, we don't need to spend too much time with this person, but but it's like, I think that's the other thing too that's so nice, even though there are problems with like more mediums entering the space and everyone being a medium. Whatever. But I think the good thing about it is that like you have more choice in who you resonate with and who you can go to. I've gotten 1 million readings at this point. I've seen 1 million practice readings. I can't sit through another like I have your father in the spirit world and he died of a heart attack situation again, like, and then it's just like fact, 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 fact for 10 minutes. Okay, goodbye. I'm just like, who are we talking to? Like, this is a human being slash spirit slash soul. And like, who like, like this whole, like, it's so ridiculous that any of us can even do this. I mean, it's funny. Psychic ability is funny. It doesn't make any sense. It defies logic. We incarnate and then we're able to like talk to those who've disincarnated before we, like, it doesn't make, it's like, how is that not funny? I think like we have to be ourselves in the work, and also, who are we trying to impress? It's like, it's like you just have to be yourself.
Well, it's such a great metaphor for life too. Especially, I mean, I've been one who has taken my life so seriously, and so it's, I've gone into the dark spaces, or just it, like no fun, no fun. It has to be like this or whatever. And yeah, I mean, I just feel like it is kind of a reflection of how you should even live your life, and not like life in general. It's not. I mean, I hate to say it's like life is precious, but it's also just life. And we have a lot of lifetimes. And like, as somebody who believes in that, like, this is one moment in a one lifetime, in a blip of lifetimes that ultimately, like, is it really going to, make a huge...
Yeah, and I mean, I think too, like, that's such a big part of it too. I think humor, enjoyment, I mean, I tend to take things too seriously too. And I think it's so helpful to be able to laugh, but also I find that that's how the spirits want to communicate. And I know on one hand, I'm saying that they don't really change, but also they do really change. It's both. A lot of the time they come through, they're just like, oh my God, I cared so much about this thing. But now I'm like, what was I so worried about? I mean, sometimes they don't. I mean, again, it's like there's as many varieties as there are people, but that seems to be such a pervasive message where they're just like, I was so angry at this person, and now I've seen all these other lives that I've lived, and the world is so big, and like I get to just move around it. It's like, what did I care so much about? So I think they really want to come through with a sense of humor and with like a sense of levity. I think that's important to honor that too.
Can I ask you what I'm calling a spiritual technical question?
I think, yes.
That you may not know the answer.
Those are my favorite.
Like, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think I know the answer, but I'm not super sure. So I'm curious what your answer is. Like, let's just take my dad, for instance. He came through and he delivered a lot of really amazing insight and messages about his own life. And I was able to reflect on my life in opposition to his life. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that's actually what I learned so much in that reading. But as we are all beings and spirits that incarnate over and over and over again, how do you know, or can you speak to a spirit who has already incarnated, but is, a transition level 1 to someone else? And does that work? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I do have an answer for it that I have no idea if it's right or not. Just no idea. Like, we really don't know anything. But my experience of it is, I think that is possible. I feel like we live in like different timelines on Earth or something, and that there's like, I think of the higher self as almost the oversoul or something like that, where it has different incarnations, but they're also in like different or like overlapping time periods, but those mm-hmm. incarnations won't meet each other. Mm-hmm. And I don't know how that works, but it seems, I don't know. That's how that's what I feel to be true. And I also find that, so when someone passes, they remember that they're a soul, but I find that they have like almost, depending on the soul, depending on so many factors, they have different almost like timelines of how much they remember at one time.
Mm.
So it's like someone might pass and right away. I mean, me, I'm just going to leave my body and go to whatever planet I'm from. But you know, but different souls, someone else might take and they experience time differently than we do. But maybe for us, like 30 years or something of being like, oh, now I've discovered or I've remembered this other lifetime that I've lived, and I don't know, just kind of like let go of this one more.
Mm-hmm.
For someone else, it might be right away. For someone else, it might be like what to us is 50 years. I don't know. But that seems to be, you know, that they go through kind of like an ascension process or something when they cross. At least that's how I experience it. Yeah, and so that's different for everybody. But I think that it is probably possible to do like what you're talking about.
Okay. Yeah, it's like in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, because time isn't linear and what we consider past lives, we consider in a linear fashion, it's a past life in a previous time period, but it's ongoing at the same time, essentially, as this timeline, that we could have many incarnations at once in a linear time frame, but it's all,
Yeah.
you know, because time isn't linear.
Exactly. I think,
Okay.
yeah, we experience when we think about past lives, we experience them as past or future. But the way that I forgot about this, and I just remembered with what you said. A spirit guide of mine showed it to me years ago. Is like, this is how they talk to me. He showed me a disco ball, and was like, if you zoom in, it looks like the lives are being read from left to right, you know, or it's like it's linear. But if you zoom out and you see that the ball is actually like it has all these different facets and they're all happening at the same time, it just depends on your perspective.
That's rad.
Wow. That's a really cool way to think about it, and also like very digestible.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're like, okay, Nelly, look, I'm just like a human. Like I think they really treat us like little kids sometimes, you know.
Well, we kind of are.
Yeah.
They're just like, do you know what a disco ball looks like? Let's talk about how lives work. I'm like, oh, okay, thank you. And then I'm like talking about it like it's so profound. And they're over there like, oh, this one, you know?
It is pretty profound though. I'm like, I'm using that for the rest of my life. The disco ball metaphor.
Yeah, they're like laughing at us probably. Just going, disco ball. They're going to talk about disco balls for the rest of their life.
I'm curious, like, if you have seen anything, just anything change over the last year with the pandemic and your readings, like, or did they kind of show up differently, or was there more of like a theme going on, or?
Yeah, it's really interesting actually because I was like trying to remember. So before March 2020, I know people went into lockdown at different times, but in New York it was in March, and like, but I feel like I just did some really weird readings from like the end of 2019 into like early 2020, where I was like, I'm not psychic anymore. I don't see your future. Like nothing that you think is gonna happen is gonna happen. But also it will, but in a different way. Like I don't know. It was a mix between like I was like March kept coming up for me as a big month. It was like March and September of 2020. But for a lot of people, I felt like March was gonna be like I was like, oh, this is when things are really starting for you. Oh my God. You know,
Kinda, yeah.
I mean,
yeah. And it's like, you're going to clarify your purpose in March. Like, you're just going to, you know. But, and for others, I was like, oh, that thing that you want to do, it's not happening. I don't know why, and you can't do anything about it. Okay, goodbye. That'll be $100, you know. But over the year, I mean, it's funny because I think also I've changed a lot. And again, the readings are filtered through me. So I think I've gotten more comfortable with not knowing exact timelines or being wrong or people not liking me or what I have to say or whatever. But also, I think people have gotten more comfortable with just hearing whatever might come up. Like, if I'm like, I'm not getting a timeline on this, people are more okay with it. The less anxious, I would say people were way more anxious before. People are more anxious now in some ways, and then like less anxious in other ways where they're like okay with the anxiety, you know? Where I feel like I could just say like just the wildest thing to someone and they're like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, yes, you know, I wouldn't do what that lady did, but I feel like I could just be like, yes, you're going to lose your husband and everyone is, you're going to lose all your money. And whereas like 2 years ago, the person might have been like, oh no, now they're just like, all right.
Yeah, like crazier, weirder shit's happening right now.
Yeah. No, but I think on a serious note, no, but like people are more open to their souls in a way, like they're more open to like really taking part in their lives and like spiritual education. And I also think people are getting way more sensitive and opening up to their own psychic ability more, or it's showing up more or something, you know. So I think like and more interested in spirituality and how it can in like a grounded way. And I'm you know, I mean, it's been obviously a lot of terrible things have happened, but I'm at least with people I'm seeing, this is like a really positive outcome or pattern that I'm seeing.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
It's what I feel like I've been feeling, but I haven't really necessarily seen tangible evidence of, but just sort of almost like maintaining the hope that that's what's kind of happening in the collective right now. But it's rad that it's actually showing up in your readings and the people that you're actually seeing, and probably a lot more surrender, right? A lot more like letting go.
Yeah, you know, and it's not always in the easiest. I mean, it's not easy, you know. It hasn't been easy for people, but I think, yeah, people are definitely just seem more open to whatever is coming up and exactly like you said, surrendering. I think other people are just freaking out, but those maybe aren't the people who are like coming in for readings.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you think is the biggest lesson or takeaway that you have learned since you started your mediumship practice?
Oh my God. I think I know you sent me that question. Like some of them I looked at, I was like, I have to think about this. No, I think like in terms of, I don't know if I just have one big takeaway. I feel like it's like I feel like a completely different person now from when I first started. I mean, I think also I think all of us feel so, I don't know anyone who feels the same way they did like a year ago, because we've changed so much in this time period too. But I feel like so much of it is about personal power for me. I don't know. I feel like just even for my personal life. Well, so I used to before I was working as a medium, I was in nonprofit, and I mean, I wasn't an activist, but I was like a little bit in that world, and I feel like there's so much of like in different pockets of society and in the world, there's so much like even if it's good or even if they're doing good work, just externalizing everything or being very reactive to what's happening and not really kind of looking at ourselves or being afraid and not even realizing it. And I think if you had said that to me like 7 years ago, 6 years ago, I don't know that I would have known what that even means. Like, I think it would have sounded like gibberish to me. Because if you don't know what it's like to be centered while crazy things are going on around you, you just don't know. You know, you don't know the difference. But But yeah, I think maybe one of my biggest takeaways is just like that there really is love all around us, and that we have access to so much more than what we think we have access to, or that we're told we have access to, and that we really have power to co-create with the universe and not have to scramble and hustle all the time to get things done, or to like depend on other people, or so I feel like it's and it's a shame too, because I think a lot of this language gets used and co-opted to self-care or like whatever, but it's because like that's taken from an element of truth, so it's like getting to that truth has been one of my biggest takeaways, really.
That's really beautiful. I love that there is so much love around us, and sometimes we just don't even remember just to connect into it.
Yeah, it's powerful. How can people find you? And also, I want to make sure that people know that you're actually doing a psychic development intensive, aren't you?
Ooh.
Like pretty much coming up like this weekend?
Yeah, this weekend. So April 24th and 25th. So I teach that with my co-teacher Manu, who is amazing. And we teach it through this place called Minka Brooklyn. So minkabrooklyn.com. And we teach that 4 times a year. So if you miss it, or if you're listening to this like after this weekend, we're teaching it 2 more times this year. And I don't have the dates on me right now, but it's on Minka's website. And people can find me. I'm Nellie Resnick on Instagram. I'm not super active, but that might change. And my website, nellieresnick.com.
Perfect. And we'll have those in the show notes for everybody too. And I think we're going to try to get this up before the intensive this weekend, so that at least those who listen this week can hopefully partake and catch that one. But yeah, I think I remember looking on the website, there's like at least 2 or 3 more dates coming up in the rest of the year. So yeah, excited.
Yeah, and I keep I have to put up my Boundaries for Empaths workshop up at some point, and I've been saying for months that I'm going to do it, and I just haven't. But I keep checking back. You never know.
That's when I feel like I actually need to
I know, I was like, fuck, everyone needs that.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nellie. This is like incredible. And I
Loved
feel like
it.
we could talk for another bazillion
I
hours.
know.
Well, thank you both so much. And these were like really thoughtful questions too. Like, yeah, I really appreciated this conversation.
Awesome. Yeah, us too. And I know that our listeners will as well. So
Yeah.
thank you. Music for Wu Nu is composed by Adam Miller.